What happens when humanity decides that their cherished tool, the ability to reason, is put at the pinnacle of all values? I mean, using reason to manipulate the world is a fundamental part of what makes us human. But how far can we take it? Are we able to reason ourselves out of the guilt that comes with committing murder? Well, not according to Dostoyevsky, as he chronicles the mental breakdown of someone who tries to do that in Crime and Punishment. So let's get started and review my next book on Jordan Peterson's reading list here on Matters of Mind. You may recognize the name Dostoyevsky. It's a name synonymous with some of the best literature ever produced. So just to have one of his novels under your belt helps to bring you into the fold of fancy book club readers and gives you some street cred with people who likely you'll never see on the street because they're all on their couches reading books anyways. So in Crime and Punishment, he asks the question at the root of human development, which will direct us individually and collectively in one of two directions. It is perhaps maybe one of the most important questions we can ask, which is, can human reason replace the need for God? The way Dostoevsky asked this important question is by setting up a story where a young, incredibly intelligent man in 19th century Russia answers that question, yes, I can.
Yes, we can.
What follows are the consequences of that choice on the shoulders of a man who tries to rationalize away the pathology of guilt. So let's get into the plot. Now, what's unique to, well, one of the things that's unique to the way the story is told is that it's much like a murder mystery, except that you as the reader know who the murderer is even before the crime is committed. So you become witness to a chain of rationalizations detailed out by the protagonist. I'll have to read this one. Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov, or I just say Rhodey. But what's important about that name is Raskolnikov comes from a Russian word that at its root means schism, which is a split or division between strongly opposed sections or parties caused by differences in opinion or belief. Anyways, so Rodion's primary schism separates reason from any higher virtue and ends up creating a divide in his mind, or possibly his mind from his soul, that nearly drives him to insanity. We see the first example of this main question and schism in the rationale provided for what would end up to be Rhodey's crime. So he overhears a conversation at a local pub. There's a young student presenting the reasoning for why it would be okay to kill a local woman. He lays out several ways that she hoards money and forces people into poverty, but all that money that she's hoarding could be used to help those that have a greater need than she. So he describes her as a nasty woman. She's taking advantage of people in need, and she doesn't even deserve the consideration that we normally would give other human beings because she's not behaving in a manner that he sees as human. And a great quote from his idea here is, wouldn't one petty little crime like that be atoned for by all those thousands of good deeds? So he's rationalizing his way into why he can kill this woman. Unfortunately for our protagonist, he hears this rationale as confirmation of the general acceptance of what he has already been working out in his own mind. So the woman that the person at the pub's talking about killing is the same woman that he's already thought about it. So he says, okay, well, a lot of people are thinking about it just like me, so that makes it a bit okay. So he's been looking for a reason to kill that woman because he feels that she's money grubbing and just plain evil. So now that he has his rationalization set up and what he thinks is acceptance by the general public, even if they may not do it so publicly, when the opportunity presents itself, as he so planned, he bludgeons the old woman to death. But Happenstance pushes him a bit further than he had planned. The old woman's sister shows up at the wrong time for her and for rhodey as well, and he deals her a few death blows before he calmly exits the scene. So, rhodey thinks that he's gotten away with it, and in some respects he did. Civilly, he's not arrested. People don't know he did it. So he planned it out pretty well, and outside of one major hiccup, which was the sister showing up, that he dealt with swiftly by committing double murder instead of single murder. But what starts to emerge is an answer to the question that this book asks. Can humanity replace God, or maybe somebody would call it natural law, with reason? Is your mind stronger than its nature? Dostoyevsky's answer to this is no.
No, absolutely not.
Little by little, rhodey's unconscious mind starts to push to the surface thoughts, ideas, and behaviors that he can no longer explain or ignore. So as smart and logical as he is, there are things within him that he cannot reason his way out of. Part of the brilliance of Dostoyevsky's mind is revealed by the process he lays out as rhodey's mind starts to fracture. There's a scene where he finds a secluded place to hide some evidence that he took from the scene of the crime. So as he walks away from hiding it under a piece of concrete or rock or stone or something like that, these feelings of satisfaction start to emerge, and he starts to laugh silently but uncontrollably. It's a laughter that he doesn't even notice until after it dies out. So I couldn't help but think of Joaquin Phoenix in Joker laughing uncontrollably in response to incredibly uncomfortable situations. This is what's referred to in mental health as a maniacal laugh that is consistent with what a psychoanalyst would see as the fracture of the self. So this is why some think of Dostoyevsky as a type of psychologist through his novels, because his writing explores the nature of our psychology and he does it so well. Along with the effects murder has on the mind of a man, there's a lot of socio-political commentary throughout this novel that's linked to the process of him having even the sparks of ideas that we can reason our way out of our nature. And it's important to remember that Dostoyevsky, being deeply religious, likely sees the reason for murder being wrong tied to the inherent dignity of humans as created in the image of God, which is a biblical idea. So once you accept the principle of individual human dignity, whether you base it on the grounds of religious precepts or secular ones of the Enlightenment, it has its consequences, as does rejecting that concept. Political ideas of the communist regimes that he lived under were deeply tied with a rejection of religion and an elevation of reason alone in the hands of a few elites guiding the people under their rule. You might remember that from the Gulag Archipelago, where the people who were religious were actually given longer sentences as compared to people who were just thieves. So this is where the conflict lies. It's a shift away from dignity and necessary liberty of individual people and towards seeing the world and history as collective peoples moving in a prescribed direction, controlled by the visions of those self-anointed persons. Their visions are usually limited only by what their imaginations are, and they really have no regard for any higher principles. They answer to themselves as opposed to any higher power whose rules and laws create a sort of limiting framework. So regardless of your imagination, some principles say you cannot murder. Dostoyevsky lies these ideas bare, and as they developed in his country, and he really takes on those fundamental precepts through this story. At well more than 600 pages, the intricate details and the cultural differences in how Russians speak to each other using varied names, this novel is a bit of work. I mean, for example, for some reason, Russians like to use their full names, their first, middle, and last when talking to each other, and we probably could have saved 150 pages if we just used nicknames. But that's the way it is, and that's the way they spoke, and it's interesting also to understand that as a bit of history. So it's a bit of work, but it's a labor worth every page. It asks some of the deepest questions that humanity could ask and answers those questions with a lot of strength. So If you enjoy detailed nuance and long conversations without small talk, this is definitely the novel for you. I still see Dostoyevsky's ideas and observations as I watch the world unfold today, where a lot of those questions are still being asked in indirect ways. I hope this short introduction can help you decide if it's something that you too would like to read. If you've read it, let me know what you thought and what kind of ideas this novel sparked for you down there in the comments. I appreciate you watching today, and please remember to like and subscribe. It's incredibly helpful, and I look forward to seeing you on my next installment. Have a great day here on Matters of Mind.